Hey.
Still melting.
We're live. Just waiting for a few people. You can have your leaf back now.
It's too hot.
There's nobody watching yet. Only people that... Oh, hello.
Someone.
Hello.
Nice to see someone. Some more. I need binos to see that.
Yeah. We can
Hello.
see people arriving anyway. We're just waiting until a few people arrive. We're a little bit early anyway. And we're just melting. We were melting indoors, so we came outside and thought it'd be better to do it outside, but we're still melting.
Mind you, when we opened the door of Heron's Lodge, it was like, oh, it was just like opening the door to the oven.
Yeah.
It was really, remember I've opened the windows actually, and now I've got to shut the side windows. But it was nice. But everybody's been hot today, and everybody's melting today, so.
Yeah, it's roasting. I know Darren was roasting because he sent a photo of his dashboard. But mine caught up with yours pretty soon after I sent you the message back, Darren. Anyway, hi.
It's nice to see everybody joining us. It's nice to know we're not, just here in the meadow sitting on the floor talking to you. Nobody. So it's good to see you all starting.
I don't know, we could have gone
us.
no coffee.
I've got water.
I haven't.
Mind you, I did have to once convince people this is just water in here.
Yeah, it's vodka.
No, I don't do vodka, but it's definitely water in there.
Gin.
Anyway, everybody, hope you've had a beautiful day, whatever you've been doing. If you've been at work, I'm sure it's been pretty hot for you. And I'm not going to tell you you'll be able to cool off tonight either, because it's still going to be really hot. 28, they reckon, by 11 o'clock at night still.
Yeah, nice.
So.
Cold showers.
Yeah, definitely. Anyway, well, welcome to our online workshop talk topic tonight is awareness and mindfulness, and welcome to the meadow of Caircrane here, and behind us we've got some sage burning, and you might just be able to clock a bit of the roundhouse, but we're sitting amongst so many leaves. The leaves are just falling. It's very autumnal here.
Early autumn.
We've got just so many that you can hear them falling all the time. But it's lovely to be here and to be outside,
and to still be able to connect with all of you wherever you are.
Yeah,
hopefully you're all sitting somewhere beautiful as well.
Yeah, and comfortable and cool, hopefully. We did actually say we should have brought the extension lead out and plug it in and still have the fan on us, but we weren't aware enough. We didn't quite have that awareness, so that leads us into this workshop, or this talk actually on mindfulness and what is actual mindfulness, what is awareness. Well, mindfulness is having that foresight. That's what I believe. It's having the foresight to see the whole picture or the bigger picture, and being part of that picture, being mindful of that role that you're playing within that picture. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. It's having a full awareness of your surroundings, of where you are and how you are. And about, we're always talking about just being, but it's having an awareness of how you are being within your surroundings, and the effect that you have on everywhere you are, everyone you meet, and your environment. Just having a holistic view of the way that you are being and the effects that you are causing, if you like.
It's a little bit like if you know when you take a stone and you throw it into the pond and you get that ripple effect that comes out, so that shows that had that effect, and that's what you have when you're on your journey. If you're not mindful, you have an effect, you leave an effect, but if you can get yourself to be able to have sort of tune into that awareness in order to be more mindful, it's a very vast topic, because there is so many aspects of this. There's being mindful in and aware within your everyday lives, your working lives, but even more so within our spiritual life. You know, I mean, we live what we do. We're not just something. You know, when we do a workshop or on a weekend, this is who we are all the time. It's the ability to think widely and see that bigger picture. That's and how everything that you do has an effect on your, as you say, your environment or people around you.
Well, on everything. If you take it as the ripples on the pond idea, we're all vibrating at a different frequency. So when we get into somebody else's space, whether they're even aware or not, our vibration affects others' vibration. So it goes really deep, and really like that's a part that you have less control over. Or, apart from the fact that you could say that when you know that you're vibrating at a frequency that you know isn't comfortable, you might distance yourself from other people because you know that you're going to rub off, your vibration's going to rub off on their vibration. Okay. But really we're going to talk more about our physical being, and because we have total control over the way we physically interact with people and within the space that we're in.
And I think that's a very good place to come and start to have that awareness of your own hoop. I like to call it my hoop, my sacred hoop. And we all have this sacred hoop. And this is this thing where we interact and either have people within that hoop or not in that hoop. It's a little bit, actually, it's a bit like this social distancing. It's been quite interesting in a way, because so many people don't have any mindfulness at all. And now the whole country, the whole world is being more aware of this. Well, not all.
No, but
you know,
they should.
But it's the biggest time I think I can ever remember seeing the impact of not being mindful. So not being mindful and being mindful are very, very close, aren't they? They're very close in hand.
And actually, you got on a really good point there, because as humans, it's really easy for us to understand when people are teaching us how not to be, how they're unmindful. We notice it much more than we do when somebody's mindful, because when people are very mindful, you don't really notice them. They don't have an effect. You're not always finding their rubbish lying around. You're not always clearing up after them. They're not always getting into your space and interfering. You don't notice them so much because they're kind of on the edge, so, and they're mindful about their own things, so they're not leaving traces, if you like. They're not leaving an echo of, oh, they were obviously here because there's 3 cups. You know, they were obviously here because their shoes are still here. Or their chair's already here, Pete, if you're there. He knows what I mean.
It's interesting, and there are so many ways that we have an impact without having that thoughts, without having that mindfulness and that awareness of. Just take, for instance, you know, you go into your friend's house or your mum's house or whoever's house it is, and you just walk in there and you see they've got a lot of washing up, and you just go and you do the washing up. You think that you're doing them a favour. But if you had more of awareness, you would ask first, would you like me to do the washing up? Because they may not have wanted you to do the washing up, because you went in there and you put your stamp on something that you thought needed doing. But it may be that they have a water meter and they can't actually afford to do washing up 2 to 3 times a day, so they wait to do it once a day. So this is putting your imprint on someone else, because you went into that kitchen, you see that washing up, and you just automatically done it because that's what you would do in your home, but not necessarily that person wanted doing in their home. I'm hoping you're catching the point here. It's like, okay, you're going to dry up for that person, and you keep your saucepans in the drawer under your cooker. This person keeps their dishes and their saucepans somewhere else. So then you're not there the next day. Then they go to get what they use regularly from where they have it, and it's not there because you've put it where you think it should go, because that's your stamp. So what I would say here is, if I was to go into someone else's space, is that if I use something from something, I'll put it back where I got it from. So I'll make a conscious note of where I've got that pan from, and I will make sure that pan goes back in the same place. So that's having an awareness, putting it back in the same place is being mindful. Yeah?
Yeah. Hopefully that's starting to go. I mean, there's a lot of aspects with other people's houses, and I know, like Lynn always likes to use this idea of, like, you go in and, like, the toilet seat, great thing. Men are going to go, oh, the women always put it down. The women are going to go, the men always leave it up. But if you go to somebody else's house, you leave it as you found it. So if it was already down and you sat down, then you don't need to worry about it. But if it was up or you lifted it up, then you put it back as it was, you know. And it sounds funny, but this is really on the surface of the physical, but it echoes in such a deeper thing, because we want to live spiritually. I think people will agree that they want to live without leaving a trace, you know. And people often say, oh, well, like, you journey on the earth, leave only footprints, which is a very good philosophy, but this is part of that same thing. And when we have their awareness and the mindfulness in those day-to-day things which sometimes seem insignificant in a way, actually that echoes in and brings our mindfulness and our awareness into the bigger picture. And as we said, we want to look on a whole. So when you look at it holistically, that's just as important, putting the pan in the right place, leaving the toilet seat as you found it, all these other things. That starts to increase the way that we interact with our reality and increases our awareness and our mindfulness in our day-to-day lives.
And you know, I'm not speaking for Bruce, but I mean, I'm not perfect. I could make mistakes, because that's what we do. But having that mindfulness and having that awareness certainly has always put me into a good space and a good place, and I like to be able to leave things how I find them. And one of our things that we have very much here on all of our workshops, whether it's an evening group or a full day or a camp, is we always say leave no trace. So we always tidy up after ourselves, and I always say leave it better than you found it. And if you borrow something, put it back. I bet everybody that's tuning into this at some point in time has either lent something, be it a sugar bowl to a book, to, I don't know, a screwdriver to a pen, to someone, and then suddenly you wanted to use that screwdriver and you haven't got it because they have borrowed it but they haven't given it back. That's having a lack of an awareness, because that's not your responsibility. You've lent it in good heart, and then you forget about that. But the person who's got it, they should be having that awareness, is that this is not mine. I've borrowed this and I need to make sure it goes back to that person I borrowed it from. And there is so many ways and so many things that we can put into this, and I think this deepens our spirituality. I think it deepens our consciousness. It widens our whole scope, because everything we do has an effect. Everything
in the physical is reflected in the spiritual. So when we bring that mindfulness into our physical being and the way we interact physically, it's reflected in our spiritual being as well. Because if you let's go from another angle. Say, like, I'm the person that's always borrowing things and never getting them back. I'm always putting people's stuff in different places. I'm always, like, leaving the toilet seat up when I go in there. I'm always leaving dirty cups lying around everywhere. Now, somebody else is going to react to that, whether they like it or not. They eventually, whether it's days, weeks, months or years, they're going to go, oh God, that Bruce, I'm always clearing up after him. Whenever he comes round, there's dirty this, dirty that, he does this, he does that. And that is, on another level, going to affect the way that you interact with that person. And earlier we talked about the ripples and the vibration. Now you think about that. So when you come into that thing, somebody's vibration is instantly going to change, going, oh, I know what's coming. because it creates a norm, and so you get these echoes that go beyond the physical. They go into the spiritual. Okay, and that can be the same as if you're always angry and you're always going to see a particular person, like whenever I'm angry they always make me feel better. How about that person? How do they feel? Oh, I only ever see him when he's angry. You know? So the awareness is, oh, I feel really angry. Let me sort my anger out before I interact with that person, so they don't always think I'm angry. You know, there's people out there that are paid to deal with you when you're angry. Go and get some counselling, you know, or learn the techniques to deal with those things. But you know, it's just having that awareness. If you're aware of how you are and how you feel, instantly it diffuses anyway. But how we behave in the physical can change the way we are spiritually, the way we vibrate as human beings.
Yeah, and once you start to have that awareness of that mindfulness, for instance, like, you know, quite often if there's a lot of ants around, I will try so hard not to walk on them. I'll walk around them, and I've been watching all the flora and everything all grow. I've been walking the track every day since March, you know, since we went into lockdown, and I've been walking it every day, and I've watched this beautiful array of beautiful herbs and flowers all sort of sprout up around the barn. Now, over the last couple of days, they've been working around the barn, and they flattened them all. They're just flat, because they had no awareness. That doesn't mean to say that they're not nice people. They're mostly, the workmen are very nice people, and I expect they're all fathers or sons, or, you know, they've got families as well. But they didn't have any awareness of those plants, and they just threw all that down. And also, I took a bag with me yesterday. I mean, Bruce will tell you, I nearly filled up. It was a half a size black sack. It was only one of those smaller ones, but it was nearly full when I come back. And as we stopped,
it's been funny, hasn't it? Like, it's been a double-edged sword, because walking the track, normally we would just drive past it. So I think both of us have a really increased awareness of the nature that's on the journey to the road. But usually, like, we would be just passing it by, driving it. You might think, oh, it's beautiful, but there's been much deeper understanding of the nature there. And for weeks we've been walking there and bringing back cans and things. It was just yesterday Lynn said, oh, there's a lot of rubbish, and it was amazing how much there was, wasn't it?
And one of the things that actually got me was the tailored cigarettes around the barn, and they hadn't stubbed them out. They had just flicked them down. And everywhere is so dry. Everywhere is like a tinderbox here. You know, and they hadn't stubbed them out, because there was one that even had like the little point of ash still on it that fell off as I picked it up. I mean, it wasn't out, it had gone out. It wasn't out, it had gone out. But it, you know, they just use
burning
them
on the
and
ground,
then just throw it down with, you know, with no thoughts. Like whoever comes along the track of a night and just discards their bottles out or their rubbish out, they have no thought, because also that also leads on to somebody else has to clean that up after them. I cleaned it up after them. You know, when people dumped all their rubbish, they had no thought or mindfulness. They just dumped it at the top of the track. But somebody else has to get rid of that. So every time you do something that's not mindful, it has an effect on someone else.
For me, it was a real eye-opener, because traditionally farmers are the caretakers of the land, and I think we'll all agree, you have that old idea, the farmer leaning on his gate and he looks after the land and his livestock and everything. But it seems in modern times they're just working the land. They're not really, they don't have the same respect for the land. And really, like, I think that moves us through to actually talking about respect for the land. You know, our ancestors had a great respect for the land. They built temples and sites to honour the land, to honour nature. You know, these amazing stone circles, and They were they the sites that they had were very much an honouring of the land. And nowadays we're in a situation where people have this sort of assumed right to the land. You know, it's okay. Oh, that's a sacred tomb. You know, somebody at some point was buried in this special place and they built an amazing tomb. And nowadays people go along and go, oh, well, let's have a fire and a party on there. You know, oh, I want to go on there and do this, that and the other. There's ancestors are buried in there. It's a place, these places should be respected. But actually there's a lack of awareness, and it saddens me, but that's within the spiritual community as well.
Absolutely.
That people seem to think it's okay to go and sit in somebody else's tomb and have a fire and a party and go, oh, the energy in here is fantastic. Yeah, but there should be a respect.
It's you know, it's very interesting. I mean, you know, how I don't know, a lot of humans just think it's our God-given right to be able to just do and go wherever we please, without having that mindfulness of that. You know, I mean, my farmer, the farmer here doesn't actually like us walking across his fields very much. And I had this big thing with him when we first moved in here, because he said, I don't like you walking across my land. And I said, well, it's not actually your land, because you will die and it will be somebody else's land. I said, you are merely the caretaker of the land, and I'm being respectful and asking you if we can walk this land. I've got a very good relationship with him now. But it's having that thought. And I mean, we've been here, we've been collecting the mugwort, we've been, today I went out and got some more wheat, and, you know, make an offering and give our thanks to it. So it's having that mindfulness, not to just be able to just take all the time. And I see, you know, unfortunately, it's something that we see quite a lot. We see it at, Bruce has just taken that on about, you know, at stone circles, and, you know, there is this thing that we feel, because we're doing something spiritual, that it's giving us these rights to do these things and just not be mindful. And I'd sort of ask, how would you feel if you were buried, okay, and someone rocked up with a big music system and then decided to have a party on your grave?
Yeah. Or your grandmother's grave.
Or any of your ancestors.
Yeah. I think it's just, we have this idea that if something was far enough back in the past, then it doesn't matter as much as something that was closer in our past. But actually it's just the same, you know. I mean, like, really, like, the past is just a memory. It's full of memories. It's full of our ancestors' memories. So it doesn't really matter if a place was sacred yesterday or it was sacred thousands of years ago. It still has a sacredness. And I'm a great believer in everywhere is sacred anyway. But there are places that people have deemed more sacred by the actions of those ancestors in those places. And so those places still have the vibration of those people. Those ancestors are still linked to those places. So we should have an awareness of that and a mindfulness that those places are sacred to those people. And it's kind of like when we're going into sacred sites, there's so many people, they go to a sacred site. What do they go to a sacred site for? Because they want to ask for stuff. It's like, oh, I want this and I want that, you know, and they just stroll on in and like, oh, give me that, you know, summon the spirits and everything. Those spirits are there all the time. When we go, it's more about permission. Asking permission to enter their place, their area, their vibration, because the land in those places vibrates at the frequency of the people that have been there.
And that is having that mindfulness to do that, and the awareness to know the answer. Because sometimes the answer is no, and that's where the ego gets in the way, you know. So, you know, and this is where you go into yourself and you feel that connection and you ask permission. It's like you ask permission to go into someone's home. You knock on the door. You don't just, you know, I mean, I've had this many a time. I mean, I was at a workshop a little while back, and someone thought it was okay to knock on the door, and as they knocked on the door, opened the door at the same time. They didn't knock and wait for a response. The knock was the knock and opening the door at the same time. And I actually had to pick, and this was actually on a spiritual retreat, and I had to pick this person up and say, just knocking on the door doesn't give you the right to come in. You knock on the door and you wait for a welcome. And it was just sort of, it was just, oh, really? Oh, okay. You know, then I couldn't use the toilet room because the shower room or anything. There was nowhere to put anything because this person had actually overtaken the whole thing. You know, there was another 4 of us to share this one bathroom, and there was nowhere to put anything. You know, there was flannels hanging over the sink. Sorry, I didn't want somebody else's flannel hanging on the sink that I needed to clean my teeth in, you know where the flannels
And so to that person, wherever they are, can you see how their actions
had an
effect and a vibrational effect that passed through and is still having an effect now? Because it's still in your memory,
Still
in your
in my memory.
vibration. You see?
That thoughtlessness, you know, and I know these are words, but they are words that carry, and it is such a big topic that you can put this mindfulness and awareness to. It's like having an awareness of keeping your voice low overnight if your neighbours are asleep. I mean, we run a centre here, and we have a lot of drumming here, and I'm always very conscious. I've got one neighbour here, the other one's a long way away, but I've got the one close neighbour here. And I always say to people, you know, just be mindful that after 10 o'clock, you know, keep your voices down, because it is so quiet here that just a whisper carries such a long way. So you have to be a little bit more mindful. And it's having that awareness and that thinking ahead a lot of the time to bring that into your daily practice. I mean, I know we started talking about the pandemic thing, you know, with the masks and distancing. I quite like this distancing because there's been times I've actually been in a supermarket long before this thing out there, and I've said, get out of my space, and I've actually said that, you know, can you step back please, you're in my space. And I've actually said that. You don't have, you know, you can be quite nice about it, you know, step back. And they just look gobsmacked, and they're like, oh, all right, I'm sorry, you know, because they're not mindful. They're not being mindful because they're thinking about everything else. And I think that this comes so much into our practice as everyday people, whether we're spiritual people or not. It's having that big total awareness. And that is something I think that this actual thing that's going on at the moment has made people a bit more aware of.
And really, I like, think back before lockdown, before all this social distance, how many times have people got so close to you that you've wished that they were out of your space, away out of your hoop anyway, just a bit further away, you know, and it's like that, oh, you're invading my personal space. I mean, I'm sure that everybody can relate to that. Pandemic, no pandemic, you know. And sometimes you don't know that person. You just know that you don't want that vibration too close to your vibration.
And I mean, there is so many things you can all equate this to as well. It's like, you know, we when one of our courses we run, we cover a lot of the shamanic healing techniques, and one of the things we say is, you know, and I mean that goes into lodge as well, is don't put heavy perfumes on. Mind what you eat. If you smoke, because I personally experienced, after being incredibly ill and having major surgery, was a nurse come up to me. I'd been violently sick, and this nurse come up to me. She'd obviously just had a cigarette, and it just made me retch, and the smell was just horrific. So again, it's having that mindfulness if you're going to be doing any sort of healing work or close work with someone, because they don't want to smell smells on you. You know, they're smells that you like, but they're not necessarily smells that person likes. And I mean, I've had it in lodge where people have come out with a big spray and gone like this before going into lodge. And no, we don't want to sit in there and smell whatever it is, brew, or that makes me feel old. I mean, what's the new ones now? But you know what I mean, these spray-on deodorants and women go like this. I mean, when I used to work, there was the staff room was a very small enclosed staff room, and the women used to go over at lunchtime sometimes to the club, and they come back smelling like Greasy Joe. And then they'd spray. They'd open their lockers up and they'd spray. It affected my chest really bad. I had such a bad reaction. I ended up in A&E on a nebulizer. And that's happened to other people. So it's all simple, everyday things to think about in mindfulness and awareness.
And especially if you're going into somebody else's space. I mean, and I think that, like, you touched on, like, the healing and everything, and there's so many levels to, if you're working closely with people within that healing context, and like as Lynn said, it's a great big picture. So firstly, you've got to think about those smells and the fact that you are entering somebody's hoop. So we'll go back to the ripples and the feeling angry and all of that. You've got to be in the right space and the right vibration before you start any healing. That's generally why we don't charge money for healing here at the centre. Is because if we're not in the right space to do the healing, we'll just cancel it. Whereas if you're a booked paying customer, it's very hard, and if you're making your living by healing, it's very hard to go, oh, I'm not doing anything today because I'm not in the right space, because you've become a business and you can't do that as a business. Also within that, you have to have an awareness that, especially with healing, and if we're doing shamanic healing, it's quite deep, it's a very real thing, it can have very profound effects on people. So if you're working with somebody, you've got to have the awareness that it's not just in that moment, it's going to stir up things that are going to be affecting them for a long period of time. So you don't want to be somebody that's just sort of like, oh, well, you've had your hours healing, that's it, on your bike, and like, don't worry me until you're going to pay for time again. Because you, as the healer, are accountable for them and the process that you've started. And that, again, is having the awareness of not stirring something up, not stirring the pot and then just running away. So you have to be available for that person to get them through the healing process that you start. And I know Lynn wants to talk a bit about, like, the fact of doing healing at festivals and things.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time we're at festivals and we do workshops, we like to do things that are real.
Yeah, we don't give taster sessions, we work. And anyone that's been to any of our workshops know that. And one of the important things for us is that having that awareness to offer that aftercare. And, and I've seen with my own eyes that there was one that we see a fire walk done, and the facilitator had left, and we had people there crying with blisters on their feet, but the facilitator had left. I've seen over the years, I've seen a lot of things. We saw
an incredibly well-renowned person, I'm not going to mention their name, was approached by somebody because they'd done a workshop healing thing, and somebody was having a really bad reaction, and their friend actually went to this healer and told them what a state their friend was in, and he just sort of, well, they'll work it out, and left them to it. So there was a real lack of awareness with that person that they're starting a process that they were responsible for.
And I'm going to say something now, and I might well rock a boat. I don't know. If I do, I do. If you're at a festival or you're at a show and you're doing healing on someone, are you actually really doing that healing, or is it your ego that's playing out here? Because why do you want people to film it? Why do you want people to see what you're doing? Why is it not private? We years ago, we haven't been for the last couple of years, but we used to go to this really big show, and we loved this big show while we was going there. And the organisers were very, very receptible to the fact that I wanted the marquees shut. And they did everything they could. They knew that we started 5 minutes. We gave people 5 minutes. If they were later than 5 minutes, they couldn't come in. It was as simple as that. It's like, you know, when a train comes in, those doors shut, they don't reopen. You miss that train. You've missed that workshop. Now, that's having an awareness that the people who got there on time. Okay? So those people were there on time. Why should they wait for someone else because they want to go for a pee, or they want to go for a cup of tea, or they want to go and buy something before they come casually to this workshop?
And why should you start the workshop 3 times in a row?
Absolutely.
For everybody continually arriving late.
Is that fair? And is that being aware of all those other people who are waiting? You know, and I mean, I would not work with an organiser that wouldn't do that. And I was very, you know, I was very pleased and very respect this person for having that understanding of where we come from. And they used to send people around to make sure people weren't peeping in as well, so that we could create a safe place. Because we didn't need people watching us. We weren't putting a performance on. We were working. And we created a safe place for people to be able to actually get what they needed. You know, if you want to go on an ego trip, have it open, have the doors open, have it filmed, have everybody seeing how good you are when you work. You know? However, you may look good and have the wind blowing and whatever, but stay around for those people. Stay around for those people that you've opened something up in them and they've got nowhere to go because you've opened something up in them and then you've gone. So, you know, it's not just a case of rocking up to these festivals or rocking up to these places and offering out this. Have that wider vision, have that wider picture, have that awareness, have that mindfulness of the people, all of the people. When we did the ceremony, Bruce and I did a talk on ceremony, wasn't it? It was the Original Wild Festival, I think. Was it ceremony? Maybe. Or the drum. We were saying, you know, if you're going to do this ceremony and everything, you know, and strut your stuff for an hour and a half, and people are going to drop, like in the heat of today, because you're strutting your stuff, you're having no awareness of those people. If you're going to do things like that, you've got to have the awareness of these people. You know, you could be doing it in the rain and they could be shivering and cold, but you're strutting your stuff and you're, whoa, you know, I'm big, everybody's looking at me. And you've got these poor people going into hypothermia. So there's so many things you've got to, you know, if you're going to work this way or just live ordinary life, you know, have that mindfulness.
You have to have the awareness of your responsibility. I mean, like, we like to keep things small here. And that's because we're mindful that we are responsible for everybody involved in whatever we're doing. But when we're at festivals, and I mean, there's been like ham fastings that Lynn's done, there's been hundreds of people, sometimes even thousands of people. You have a responsibility to each and every one of those people. So if you are, like, you know, running something, and if just one person out of all of those people is like either roasting in the sun or freezing in the rain, you know, you are the one responsible for them. And that's where this increased awareness comes in. You have to have that awareness and be mindful. It's like, you can't just say, oh, well, I'm aware that that person's suffering, you know, full stop. You've got to put the question mark there. What can I do about it? Because I'm the person that's responsible for this. And that's where the difference between the awareness and the mindfulness. I mean, awareness can be followed with an exclamation mark. But if you follow awareness with a question mark, it leads you to mindfulness. You have your awareness. What do you need to do? Is there something that you need to do? And that takes us into that mindfulness space.
Yeah. And I'm hoping what came into my head then will come back. So there's something quite, you know, came in then, and as it does, it goes out again. You know, for me, this is it's a very vast subject, because it's not only about your actions, mindfulness, it's also about your words. You know, before you say something, is it kind? Is it necessary? That's being mindful. Yeah?
Is the person in a place to hear it?
Yeah. Is it true? Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's these a lot of things, because all of these things have that effect. And it's like here, we always, you know, we welcome people here, but we expect them to have this awareness that if they smoke, they go out by the gate and they take their cigarette butts home with them. Such a simple thing. And I've had to learn that, because I used to have a bucket of sand here, and they used to put it all in there, which used to leave that for me to clear where they'd gone. And then it rained, and it'd all be sitting there, and the smell was just absolutely disgusting. And suddenly I thought, why am I doing this? You know, people need to be made to be aware to do this for themselves and for me, and especially for the Mother Earth. You know, why you just discard your rubbish on the ground? Why do you? And you know, and I like this because I've got 8 grandchildren. At some point, they're usually over here, and they're not learning to be anything at all. But what they are learning is there is another way, and it's interesting on how much they actually pick up. And I'm really glad to see that they know that, you know, that they see their parents putting their cigarettes or, you know, their rubbish in the bin or their cigarettes in a little pot. It's all these little tiny things that will really hold it, you know, take us all into a whole new way of thinking. And getting into this mindfulness with words and timings and being honourable. I mean, you know, I was talking to a friend the other day, and it's going to be the first time in 14 years that Touch the Earth haven't been to one of the festivals, and it's because it's just clashed with something else, unfortunately. But in 14 years, we have always been reliable, and that is another thing as well, mindfulness and awareness. If you say you're going to do something and it's a yes, and you say you're going to do it, do it. There's been times that I've done a drum circle here with just me. I've done a drum circle here for just 2 people. And I know someone that turned around and actually said they wouldn't do it because there was only 2 people turned up. You know, no. Have that mindfulness. Those people have travelled all this way. You've made that commitment not only to the physical people, but you've made that commitment to the spirits as well, that you're going to do this. So be mindful of that and have that awareness that these people, maybe 1 or only 2 of them, are still worth exactly the same as if there was 20.
You know, I remember like a few years ago I'd organised a workshop for a certain day, and it was like a week or so before this workshop was going on, and only 1 person had booked in. And I was so looking forward to it, and I said to them, I said, well, it might be just you and me. It means that we'll just have this one-to-one thing. It's going to be amazing. And they were really excited. And then suddenly loads of other people booked in. And it was a good workshop anyway, but funnily for me, I was so excited that I might actually be doing this workshop with just 1 person. I don't think in the end we had 11 or 12, which is about the number that I like, the most I like to work with anyway. But it's funny from the perspective of doing those things, because sometimes when you have a smaller group, when only 2 people turn up, you have such an intimate experience. And plus also those people go away and they've had such so much of a deeper and intimate experience that they tell everybody, and before you know it, you can't get enough people. You know, you've got too many people that want to come to all the next things anyway, because they really sort of spread that word. So again, it's like those ripples on the pond. If you do it anyway, you know, and we've done things like, you know, we did a sweat lodge when it was during lockdown, so there was only 3 of us in the sweat lodge, but, you know, we said we were going to do a sweat lodge, and so we were going to do a sweat lodge.
We did it.
You know. And that's happened on more than 1 occasion over the past, I know, where, you know, the intention for something was set, so there's the awareness that was the intention, so the mindful aspect of it is to go ahead and do it anyway.
And that's one of the things that I've found very, very quite uncomfortable this last few months, because in the last few months I've cancelled more things than I've done in over 25 years. Because when I've set something out, I do it come hell and high water. I've done it on crutches, I've done it with broken arms, you know.
Yeah, we took a retreat, we took a whole group to Dartmoor one year, and Lynn with the broken arm cutting carrots and things, because we weren't going to cancel, you know.
Yeah. And that's not to sort of sprout on about ego or anything like that. What it's trying to say to you is that my awareness went, those people, all those, because people said to me, you know, like actually some of my family said maybe, Mum, don't you think you ought to cancel this, you know? And I said, no, because these people, they may only have that 1 week off, you know, in the summer. They've booked that time off work. They've all made arrangements. They may have had dog sitters or put their dogs in kennels or arranged to have their children looked after. It's the whole bigger effect. Okay, for me to cancel it is easy. I cancelled it. Easy. But it's not, because it's a bigger picture. It's all of those other people that were going to come that it would have affected. You know? And I think that that's a very, very important point, is to have that awareness and that mindfulness of everything that you do has an effect on another. I remember going back a few years ago, or a good few years ago actually. It's before I moved here, so it's even longer than that. It's about 20 years ago. But everybody was in my little group at the time was really excited because this big Native American guy was coming over, and we were doing a workshop on the Saturday, and they had something on the Friday evening, and I didn't go over to that, but I was there ready, waiting for this workshop for him to turn up with the friends that were bringing him. And there was about 20 people sitting there, all arrived on time. He was over an hour late. He walked through the hall, yawning his head off, going, "Oh, I should have had that last night." I don't know what had that last night was. I'm assuming it was alcohol. And all these people, it kept all of these people waiting. I was ready to just go ahead and just do something else and say, cancel him right out. I've locked doors on people if they're late, and that's because I'm caring about the people who have turned up on time. But there is so much, you know, and if you start, I mean, you know, give yourself a challenge to sort of have this in mindfulness and see where you get with it, because it's good, sort of like count how many bricks you see, I don't know, a day or something.
And I think try and get your awareness into the fact of all those people that you've never really noticed, as opposed to the ones, because as I said at the very beginning, it's really easy to notice the people that affect you because their unawareness, their lack of awareness, their lack of mindfulness. But think about all those people that they come round, they visit you, you never really notice that they've been there. Those are the people to look to. It's much easier to learn the lessons from the people that have a lack of mindfulness and a lack of awareness. But bring your awareness into those people that you never have those thoughts about, because those are the ones that you should watch and learn from. Those are the ones that are doing it right. They're the ones that you're never thinking, oh, they've been round and done that again. You know, they come, they go, you enjoy the time with them, and afterwards there's no echoes of them being there. Those are the great teachers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are the great teachers.
And I think that goes on. Yeah, I think I would do this. And
talking of great teachers.
Yeah, this was. If you've been to Kerkerain, you will have seen this sign up. It's up in my house. It's up in my porch. It's up in the toilet, because that's where a lot of people sit. And I love it. It's called Ways to Be, and I'll share it with you. Ways to Be. You are a guest here. Tread lightly and be respectful. Clean up after yourself. Each day leave things cleaner than what you found. If you use something here, clean it and put it up. Leave no clutter here, as someone will have to clean up after you. The basis of strengthening your spiritual connection in the absence of clutter. In nature, the animals keep their power trees clean and free of clutter, as they take loving care of what they hold sacred. Cleanliness is next to godliness. Approach each day as a lifetime. Each morning is the springtime. The noon is the summer. The evening is the autumn. And the nighttime is the winter. Each day is a gift, and our point of power is one day at a time, ever reducing our point of power to the present moment. When your life is free of clutter, the Creator can work through you, thus becoming a hollow bone. Make a statement rather than ask questions. It is more risking to reveal yourself than to ask others to reveal themselves. Direct your questions to how and what questions, Write them down to gain clarity and to help others. Let go of assumptions and expectations, of which are planned resentments. Ask for support, yet be supportive in ways that others feel supported. Ask permission when you're using others' things, unless there is a clear agreement. Share your intention each day of what you're going to create, and stay focused on your own intentions. Stay out of other people's hoops unless asked, and keep your own house in order. Take care of yourself on all levels: mind, body, spirit, and emotions. You honour the circle when you take loving care of yourself and are productive. Lend a hand and share your time, talent, and treasure. It is in giving that we receive. Seek to understand rather than be understood. Release your neediness, explanations, and justifications. Spend time each day in prayer and meditation and quietness. Play with your whole heart. Be passionate in what you do. Dance, laugh, cry, sing. Don't take yourself so damn seriously. Stay current within each circle. Speak from your heart. What I'll do, I'll take a photograph of this and I'll put it up on the Care Shamanic Centre's page so that you can read this again. And they are the words of Patrick. It's
a great teacher.
Great teacher. And that's another thing as well. It's just honouring people. You know, I know some of you have listened to when I've done chants or something, or songs, or read something that somebody else has written. You know, just it's having that mindfulness to have the respect. And you know, I think that's really, have respect in everything you do. Have respect for people, for places, for everything. Have responsibility and accountability. You know, if you're holding a ceremony or you're doing something and someone passes out because you've been ratting on and you've been ratting your stuff and you haven't been mindful enough that they're suffering with heat stroke, you know, you've got accountability for that. You have accountability if you say you're going to do something and you don't do it because you've let people down. These are words, but they're very important words. And I think responsibility and accountability are very powerful words.
They are.
And I think they go hand in hand with mindfulness and awareness.
Exactly. Be aware of your actions. Be aware of the effects that you have on others. Be mindful of how you affect them. And be mindful of the way that you are and the way that you are being.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't promise things you can't deliver. You know, have that mindfulness of how that can leave somebody feeling. These are all ways of should all be part of our daily practice. And you know, and I always like to try and do my best to think. You know, I do my day. I go through my day every night when I go to bed. I go through my day, and I have a look and see, have I been mindful? Have I been aware? Was this ego? Was that ego? And I go through my day and see what my interaction and my play was within that. And you know, and it's good when I see something that's not right, because it gives me an opportunity to work on that.
Yeah.
And do that. So you know, we're all human. We all make mistakes, but it is good to have that. You know, have that what am I trying to
awareness?
say? Yes. Have that awareness, you know.
Be active as well.
Yeah.
It is an activity to be mindful and aware. It's not a passive thing. You have to be active to be aware and to be mindful. You can't just sit back and let awareness and mindfulness happen, because it's not like that. It's an active thing. You have to put a bit of effort in, you know, unless you do absolutely nothing and you're aware that you're doing absolutely nothing and you're never going to make a mistake, because you never do anything to make a mistake with. But if you want to live, you've got to have the action of being aware and mindful, especially when we're walking the spiritual path, I feel.
You know, and I try to practice this in my own daily tasks as well. And you know, and I think I really don't like my house if it's in a mess, because I think if my house is in a mess, I'm not showing it respect. I can't live in a clutter like that because it makes my mind cluttered, and I can't think straight. And like what it says in here about the power trees, the animals, they all keep their homes tidy. And I find that if I'm in a bit of a mess, I can't think straight, and I get, a bit disgruntled over it. And, we have an awareness when we're doing drum birthing that if you start to get a bit stressed out, don't put that stress in your drum. So it's all these things. It's just, it does come.
It is a very big subject.
We could talk
We're
for hours
back round
and
to
hours,
the ripples in the pond with the drums and the stress, and
we haven't got a great deal of time to go through. We're going to look forward to reading some of your comments, and
yeah, we can't really. I hope there hasn't been too many questions because the writing is so small.
It's a long way
we can
away.
see that there was a lot of writing at times.
But it's like my grandchildren. I had 2 of my grandchildren over to stay the day before. Was it yesterday? It's yesterday and the day before, and they left it how they actually they left it better than they found it. Because when I went in there, I said to them, well, you're going to have to tidy up in here. I'm not just going to go and tidy up after them. And they did. They tidied up after themselves without me having to say too much to them. And I think, if we just led by example, that's the best thing we can actually do, is lead by example. Because it doesn't come second nature to everyone. It's just leading by that example.
That is the way. The only thing with awareness and mindfulness is those examples often aren't noticed. People tend to notice when people aren't mindful and aren't aware. So if you've got people on your case all the time, you're not managing to do it very well. Excellent. Anyway, I think we're pretty much
there, because we just want to have a little roundup, and we'd like to leave you with this this thought. And again, I'll write this out a bit neater because it's really, really rubbish. You've written that, scrawled out, looks like a spider's done it. But I think this is, I like this one. So you may have heard it from me before, because it is one that I tend to use, and I use it with myself as well and think about it quite often. And it's, what's your thoughts? Well, actually, I'll let Bruce read this because I just read that one. That's if you can understand my scrolling.
I can, because I've read this quite recently. It's been doing the rounds on Facebook as well, so I expect a lot of you have heard this before. But watch your thoughts. They become words. Watch your words. They become actions. Watch your actions, because they become habits. And watch your habits, because they become your character.
I like that one. I've had that one for such a long time, and I really do like that.
Anyway, so I hope that you've
enjoyed it.
You've got something to think about.
Yeah, and and we're fine, because you're not going to agree with everything we say as well. So that's good as well. Go away and have your own thoughts on all of this. But I hope that we have just touched something and triggered something that that you have, or given you a bit more to think about, really. And thank you everybody for joining us. Yeah. We're going to be, I'm not sure we'll be out here next Friday. We might be in
depends how hot it is. It's quite nice now. I've stopped melting. It's a good temperature
now, yeah.
But we're here same time next week, 7:30, and we'll be talking about death and dying, which is happens to the best of us.
But it'll be an interesting evening. I hope you found tonight's interesting. You'll find a lot of the other online things that we're doing this August on this page, as well as in the events. So that's Friday the 14th is 7:30 again on this particular group page, or page, not group. And Saturday the 22nd of August in the afternoon, I'm doing a women's workshop. And then 25th of August in the evening, a guided meditation. So there's quite a lot going on, and I think you're going to be doing something as well at some point, aren't you?
Yeah,
we haven't planned it yet.
I've got something in an idea brewing, but It all really depends on whether I'm going to do an actual workshop or whether I'm going to think about doing something online that will probably be some different relaxation techniques, something a little bit more physical relaxation.
And you say, we'll leave you on this. That's where mindfulness comes in. Because we usually work with people face to face, and we like to be able to see what we may trigger in them, and we're being very mindful all the way through going live and doing online stuff of how far we can take things, how deep we can take things, because we like to know that we can be there to help and assist. And this isn't just somebody around the corner, this goes out over the world sometimes, and if someone's in another country, I'm glad to help them as well as I could if they come and see us. So again, you know, have thoughts, have awareness, have mindfulness in all that you do. Walk with respect, walk gently on the earth, and
Leave no trace.
leave no trace.
And if you need to contact either of us, you can find us very easily through the centre.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night.
I'll leave you with an autumn leaf.